So one thing to learn about in week two, in chapter two of Rossman the Think Do book, is how to talk about center and spread. And then the other thing that comes out of that is how do we tell if something's unusual, an event's unusual. And what you're going to learn in week three, chapter three, we're going to learn about the shapes of distributions and what the shape we have, the shape of the distribution determines what measure of center and spread is best used. Now, I'm not going to get into shapes this week because I mean that's chapter three stuff. That'll just confuse the issue. But we do want you to be able to find out of this week. We want you to be able to find this mean, the standard deviation, and then the 5-number summary, then the IQR, and then there's two ways that we can come up with side of an event if something's unusual. Dr. Stevens does walk you through the mean plus or minus 2 standard deviations using z-scores and see if it's something more than 2 standard deviations above or 2 standard deviations below the mean. And then he kind of poo-poos this the 1.5 IQR test. He's got it one sentence, and you might see it, you might not, but it's an important tool to use whether he likes it or not. People do this, so I want you to be able to do both. So that hopefully you'll be able to do that after this. On the exam one, I'm going to ask you to do one or the other, and I'm also going to want to make sure that you understand what is the most appropriate to use. So again, next week we'll nail that down. And for this week, we just want to be able to run both of them. So I've got this spreadsheet, and right now I'm still running off the Google Sheet. I want to finish my example so that you so then you know where to find it. And then I'll download it, put it in an Excel sheet, and upload that too. And this is optional. You do not have to respond to one of these. It would be good to, and think I've got 10 different variations here. And if you don't like these variations, you want to go find your own data, by all means, there's a ton of it out there. Just make sure that it's quantitative and it's a continuous variable. You're going to see a couple of these here, and I've commented that they aren't very continuous in their makeup. And you'll learn, well, you learned a little bit about that last week in chapter one, and then it continues in chapter two and then three. Okay, so you can see my spreadsheet. Now, I'm like spreadsheets, and if you like spreadsheets, we can do a lot of the calculations here. Spreadsheets do quartiles a little weird, so if you're trying to do this for WebAssign, you might not get the right answers. But for us, for our purposes, it's fine. I'm also going to show you an applet that I've got linked and how to get that. So let's do it here. So, and you can get these. Just copy these formulas down and tweak it if you want. If you want to learn how to do that. Otherwise, you can use the applet, and that's fine too. And again, don't do this stuff by hand. And on the exam, I don't want you to do it by hand. That's what the tech's for. Small data sets, that's WebAssign questions. Get after small data sets. Make sure you do it with small data sets. But you'll never do that after this course. Here, now I'm going to do min, quartile, one. I'm going to call it Q1, the lower quartile, median, Q3 is the upper quartile, and then the maximum. And then let's start over again. Now let me try to zoom in a little bit so you can see this. Let's see if zoom. Sometimes when I'm zooming, when I'm sharing my screen, it doesn't show up. Oh, it does show up. Okay. So to find the median with a spreadsheet, you just do equals. Every time you do an equal sign, you're telling the spreadsheet, I'm calculating a formula now. And for the mean, they call it the average. And you see, I just typed AB, and there's average. And then what you do is click on it and see how it gets the parentheses, and you just want to select that data. And yes, there's ways to define a data range. If you know how to do it, use it, but you don't have to. Generally, we don't want to autofill, so I don't want to do that. And then standard deviation, do the same way, equals STD. And then there's a lot of different standard deviations. Honestly, this is the old one. I just always use this because I know it's a sample standard deviation. That's, if you're looking at the formula, this is the one with over n minus 1. And it's usually what we use. So I've got the mean and the standard deviation. Now I get a little fancier. Well, let's show you the old one. Let's just show it the basic way. Equals, and then just start typing the word minimum and see how it comes up. And again, just select your data. Some of this data is pretty large, so. And then quartile, what you do is equal, and this is where the spreadsheets go a little bit astray. I've never been able to reconcile it. You select your data, comma, and then you're going to do 1 because we want the first quartile. And that's, no, I don't want to autofill. And then I'm going to do equals, and you can do quartile 2 if you want, because that's what the median is. You can also type the word median. That's what I'll choose to do. And then I'm going to do equals quartile, select the data, comma 3, because of the upper quartile, and then we do equals max. The maximum comes up. We don't even need to type the parentheses, it does it for us. And select it. Okay, so that's the mean standard deviation, and then the 5-number summary. Now we also need to get the interquartile range. So IQR, that way you get the IQR, you subtract Q3 minus Q1. So here, let me write that over here. Do Q3 minus Q1. That's just for you, if in case you didn't find that in the textbook, you haven't looked at the textbook or watched any videos. Okay, and the way, so I'm going to just do equals. I'm going to click on the Q3 number, minus, click on the Q1 number, and there we go. Okay, so now, how do we run the outlier test? You just wait 1 minute here, and I'll get some writing ready. So I wrote out what we're going to do. So to run the mean plus or minus 2 standard deviation test, as Dr. Stevens does, right? This is how he walks through us. You take the mean, and you multiply the standard deviation times 2, and then you take that away from the mean, and that cuts off the lower fence. Anything less than that can be considered an outlier, and then you take the mean and add 2 standard deviations to it, and anything above that is the upper fence. It's not anything that's an outlier. And then we can do the same thing with the median, the IQR. You just take the lower quartile. See, I've got the formula there. Lower quartile minus 1.5 IQRs. And then you take the upper quartile and add 1.5 IQRs. And those are the lower fence and upper fence respectively. Usually, depending on the shape of the distribution, they'll be about the same. Sometimes one's more sensitive than the other. And then when we get into the shape, you'll see how they play out that way. So how do we do this? How do we do this without having to punch that into a calculator, which isn't hard to do, I'll admit. But and so what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to say lower fence. This is for me as a human. It doesn't have the computer at all. Then it's upper fence. And then I'll just copy and paste that same thing right down here so I can run the other outlier test. Okay, and so I'm going to do the mean first. So I'm going to equal to tell I want a formula. I'm going to click on the mean. I'm going to do minus 2 times shift 8, right? The standard deviation. So this is going to give me the lower fence. And then, no, I don't want to autofill. That's one thing in Google. Sometimes that's a handy feature. Right now it's a pain. I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to click on the mean number. And I'm going to do plus 2 times that standard deviation. Okay, so those are the 2 fences. One thing I'm seeing right now, so just so before I make a decision, do you see how I've got the 5-number summary here? And anything less than 8.35-ish is considered an outlier. Our minimum value is 12.6, so there were no lower outliers. We look at the upper fence, 28.8-ish, and our max is 29.5. So at least that maximum is an outlier, right? Based on that mean plus or minus 2 means 2 standard deviations. We'll go back and sort the data and take a look for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to do this Q1 minus 1.5 IQRs, and you can multiply the interquartile range by 1.5 if you want, but I'm going to be lazy, and I'm just going to do equals. I'm going to click on Q1, and I'm going to do minus 1.5 times Shift 8, and I'm going to click on that IQR number. And that's the lower value. And then equals, I'm going to click on the upper quartile plus 1.5 times that IQR number. I'm just looking to see if that, yeah, I guess that makes sense. So there. So in this case, using the 1.5 IQR test, there are no outliers. The minimum value is bigger than the lower fence. The maximum value is less than the upper fence. So there are no outliers using this thing. And next week we'll decide which is the best to use. So let's see. I'm going to sort this data because it is not sorted. This is the beautiful thing about a spreadsheet. I'm just going to select the data. And then if you go to data, you can sort, arrange A to Z. Let's see if it does it. There we go. See how that did that so nicely without any work? Except I lost all my work. Where's all my work? Oh, crap. Just a minute here. Oof. Here we go. I just want, oh, I see. I just want to sort this range. That's what I did. I sorted the whole sheet. Data, sort range by column A. Let's see if it did it mess it up? There we go. Yeah, that way it just did the numbers. Thank goodness for undo. So no lower, let's see, 26.99 was the upper fence. 26.99. So those two values based on that one, that mean standard deviation test, there are two outliers, two upper outliers. Okay. Alrighty. So, oh, what did I do? I lost my upper fence. What happened? Here equals, get to see this again. Q3 plus 1.5 times that IQR. There we go. Good. So now you'll have this when if you pull this up and do your own. Okay. Oh, one last thing before I shut up. Maybe doing all these calculations on your spreadsheet is not your cup of tea. Well, you can do most of it right here. I'm going to select the data. It's sorted now, but it didn't need to be. I could have done the raw data. If you go to Canvas, here, come on. Give me just a minute here. Sometimes in this computer, when I'm sharing my screen, here, let me stop my share. I'm going to stop. How do I stop my share? I'm supposed to know how to do this. Here we go. I'm going to stop my share. That way I can see all my let's see. I'm trying to go to Canvas. Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm in Canvas. So where you can find this, I don't know if you checked this out already. If you go to modules and then this course resources, you see this online statistical tools. I've got a page here in Canvas that links to all these tools that I've been collecting for a while. Actually, I got to do a little bit of updating on a couple of them. But when we come to making graphs next week, I'll point you towards these. But right now, for today, we're going to do this Rossman Chance. Chance is Beth Chance, who's a professor down at Dartmouth, I think, unless she's retired, guru in teaching statistics. And anyway, I'm going to click on this, and they got all their applets they got available. We aren't going to use a third of them. We aren't going to use more than a couple. But the one that I'm going to point you to today is the descriptive statistics one. And then I'm going to clear out the data. I'm going to uncheck the stacked includes header. And I'm going to clear the data. I'm going to paste on my data, make sure I don't have any text in it because it doesn't like text. I'm going to use data. And then if I want to find the mean, I want to find the standard deviation or a mean standard deviation, and it even tells me the IQR. How about that, huh? And there they are. And then these numbers here, let's see. That's the upper quartile, Q3, and that's Q1. So you can even get those off there. So here's your mean standard deviation, and then your whole 5 number summary. Oh, it doesn't tell us the minimum, does it? Well, you can find the minimum. You can find the minimum by looking at the lowest, sorting it in a spreadsheet, I guess. I thought it did that. Well, it's okay. So, but here's the IQR, and then you got to run the test, add 2 standard deviations, subtract 2 standard deviations from the mean, and then there's your IQR, and do that times 1.5, and add it to that, subtract it to that. Okay, so it's not that bad if you don't like using a spreadsheet. Okay, and I'm sure there's plenty of other applets online. If you'd like one better, go ahead, share it in the discussion forum. It'd be great. Okay, all righty, I guess that helps. Let me know what you need.